Have you ever felt like you're caught in a storm, just looking for a safe place to land? Well, today we're going to dive into 5 psalms that basically map out that exact journey. And these are so much more than just old poems. They're like a guide, a roadmap for the soul that takes us all the way from total distress to just overflowing with gratitude. So let's explore this path together.
But first, let me ask you this. Think about it for real. When the pressure is on, when you feel completely lost, what's your first instinct? Where do you go? Because that feeling, right there, that's the starting line for our journey today. It connects us straight to the heart of this first psalm.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 5 stages. We kick things off with a cry for help in Psalm 61. Then we shift into a quiet trust in 62. After that, it's a deep spiritual longing in 63. And then we'll face down some hidden dangers in 64 before we finally land in this amazing harvest of praise in Psalm 65. Let's get started.
Okay, let's begin. You know, most profound transformations in life, they don't start when we're on top of the world, right? They almost always start from a place of vulnerability, that heartfelt cry for help when we feel completely and utterly alone. This psalm is from King David, and you can just feel his sense of isolation. I mean, we don't know for sure if he was literally in exile, fleeing a rebellion, or maybe just feeling emotionally stranded, but that phrase, "from the end of the earth," wow. It just perfectly nails that feeling of being totally cut off, a million miles from safety. And that is exactly what David is looking for. The whole theme here is God as the ultimate safe place. He's called a strong tower against the enemy. Think about that. It's a military image, it's a fortress, a place of absolute security when it feels like everything else is crumbling around you.
So the really crucial point here is that our lowest moments can actually become our biggest turning points. It's when we're overwhelmed that we're finally pushed to look for a strength that's bigger than our own. And once you find that kind of security in God, well, it just makes you want to stick around, to stay in His presence, which is exactly what David vows to do.
And you know, as we find that refuge, our whole posture starts to change. That desperate, panicked cry begins to soften into a quiet, confident trust. This is the next stage of our journey, where we move from panic to patience.
This verse right here is the anchor for the entire psalm. In fact, it's so important that he says it again almost word for word a few verses later. And notice that word only. That's huge. This isn't about God being one of many options. It's a radical statement that He is the only source of real stability. The psalmist has gone from crying for help to standing firm on solid ground.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. The whole psalm is built on this stark contrast. On one side, you have God, unshakable, a rock. On the other side, human power and wealth. And look at the descriptions: a tottering fence, a lie, a vain hope. It's such a powerful look at the anxiety that comes from putting our trust in things that are, guaranteed to fail us eventually.
So the takeaway is pretty crystal clear. Real peace, the kind that lasts, isn't found in our circumstances or our money or what other people think of us. It's found in patiently and quietly trusting in God alone and just pouring out our hearts to Him because He is that one constant, unchanging refuge.
Okay, so once that trust is established, once we're standing on that solid rock, the journey takes a turn inward. The focus shifts away from defense and waiting and moves to a passionate, active pursuit of God Himself. To really get this psalm, you have to picture the scene. David's in the wilderness of Judah, a physically dry, barren place where finding water is a matter of life and death. He uses that external landscape as this powerful metaphor for what's going on inside him, a deep, desperate spiritual thirst for God's presence that feels just as real as his need for water.
And this psalm paints such a beautiful picture of what an intimate relationship with God can look like. It is not passive. It's about earnestly seeking, finding this deep satisfaction, thinking about Him constantly, clinging to Him for safety, and just praising Him with joy. It's a relationship that satisfies the deepest parts of our soul.
But this journey of faith, it's not always just quiet contemplation, is it? That deep relationship becomes our source of strength when we have to navigate a world with very real dangers. And so now, the psalmist turns his attention to the threat of hidden enemies.
This metaphor is just so vivid. The weapons being used against the psalmist, they aren't literal swords and arrows. They're words. The enemy is operating in secret, sharpening their tongues to spread slander, coming up with plots to ambush the innocent with bitter words. We've all seen this happen.
And this is the dramatic climax.
Just when the plotters think they're safe and they've gotten away with it, God intervenes. He shoots his arrow, and suddenly they're the ones who are wounded. And in this incredible twist of justice, their own tongues, the very weapons they used, become the cause of their own downfall.
So the big lesson here is about having confidence in divine justice. It's about trusting that God sees what's done in secret and that He is the ultimate defender of the innocent. And His justice doesn't just protect, it serves as this powerful proof of His work in the world, which strengthens the faith of everyone who sees it.
And this brings us to the final stage of our journey. After crying out for refuge, after waiting in trust, longing for God's presence, and seeking His protection, the path finally culminates in this absolute explosion of praise and gratitude.
This psalm just pulls the camera way, way back. The perspective gets huge. The praise isn't just for one single answered prayer or for personal deliverance anymore. No, it expands to celebrate God's goodness and power over all of creation. It feels less like a diary entry and more like a global anthem of worship.
I mean, just look at this list. It's just overflowing with abundance. The psalm celebrates God as the one who not only forgives us, but also controls the mighty oceans and provides for the entire earth. He sends the rain, He makes sure there's a harvest, and the result? The hills, the pastures, the valleys, the whole planet just shouts and sings for joy.
So here we see the true deep gratitude. It starts on the inside. It begins with recognizing God's forgiveness. And from there, it just flows outward. It opens our eyes to see His power in the world around us and His hand in the everyday things we take for granted, from the food we eat to the beauty of a sunset. So when you put it all together, you get this incredible roadmap of the life of faith. It's a journey that accepts our distress, it requires us to make a choice to trust, it helps us cultivate a deep longing for God, it relies on His justice, and ultimately, it just blossoms into this profound gratitude.
And that brings me to a final question for you to think about. Looking at this path, from seeking refuge all the way to offering praise, where do you see yourself right now? It's just a powerful reminder that no matter what stage you're in, you're on a well-worn path, and it's one that ultimately leads to joy. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey.